wishing they're all dead. The lines cut off inside my head. I left here like a broken man with no idea of where I stand. Oh, my mind clears. Lord, I shed all of my tears. Oh, now baby, I was just waiting here while you moved on. Security, this newfound freedom you kept from me. The sound of all your loaded guns. This outbreak war has just begun. The sound of all your loaded guns. This broken man has already won. Oh, my mind clears. Lord, I shed all of my tears. Oh, now baby, I was just waiting here while you moved on.
This is the Evan Ginzburg Show at VillageConnectionRadio.com. We have Jim Savali Engineering, the owner of Village Connection Radio, and he tells me that this may be our last week in the hallowed studio.
Yeah, can I also add that was the best last-minute move I ever saw in my life that you just made.
I have like Bruce Lee-like
For those
reflexes.
of you who go back to the start of the show and you want to play it in slow motion,
yeah,
you will see Evan unplugging the air conditioner and getting me a water at the same time.
That's right.
That was pretty quick.
There you go.
But yeah, this may be, sadly to say, our last Sunday shows in this place.
And why, pray tell? What's the politics?
You know, you've seen some of the issues with music, you know, downstairs during a show. I don't know if you ever
we have a recording
that.
studio downstairs, so
Which is
we'll have
great...
somebody performing, and all of a sudden you hear like volume from beneath us.
Let me add that the recording studio at D City Studios is a great studio. It just doesn't go with the radio station, you know, because the sound, you know, they have performances. They're recording music downstairs, and we need quiet, so it's hard. So that's, and I love this place. You know I do. So I'm probably gonna cry.
There you go. And without further ado, we have Sarah Delbito and David Craven from Raunchy Little Musical.
Hi.
And appearing at the Landmark on Main in Port Washington.
Yes.
And before we talk about the show, tell us about yourselves, because this is your first time on the show. Whoever wants to go first.
Well, I'm a singer-actress, and I'm based out of Tampa, Florida, and been there all my life. Lived in Manhattan for a little while. It's good to be back in New York doing a show. Having a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. Same thing. Except I direct too, and I have a caroling company at Christmas time. So
A caroling company.
caroling company.
Wow,
So every Christmas I send out carolers in 1840s costumes, and we sing 4-part around Atlanta.
So since it's 97 degrees in July, can you carol something for us real quick?
No, I always do it in 4-part.
Okay. There you go.
And I sing bass, and that part's boring by itself.
Wow, interesting. I'm a Jew and I love Christmas. You ever see A Christmas Memory with Truman Capote narrating?
Yeah.
That's the most beautiful film. It's like one of my favorite films.
Truly.
Yeah, and A Christmas Story.
Oh, Christmas Story.
Boy,
I mean,
yeah,
there
how
you
great
go.
is that?
It's so good. It's
Well-
a musical now, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now that we've gone totally off tangent
I
from
was wondering.
Raunchy Little Musical to Christmas, tell us some career highlights as actors, singers.
I'll tell you, I really love this one.
Really?
Yeah, it's a really great show. It's about female comedian Belle Barth. She was very popular in the 50s and 60s.
Catskills.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
And, I feel like she's one that kind of flies under the radar. Her party records were sold under the table at clubs. But, she was around the same time as Rusty Warren and all those names. But, I kind of feel like she flies under the radar. And she's just really great and has really paved the way for other female comedians to be a little dirty, if you will.
Well, and she was never on TV.
Never
That's why
on
people
TV.
don't
Yeah.
Interesting.
know her.
So this reminds me of Rudy Ray Moore, Dolomite,
Sure.
Blowfly.
Yeah.
Even Red Fox had those X-rated party records back in the day,
Absolutely.
and they had their cult followings,
Mm-hmm.
but because they lacked the TV, like Ed Sullivan wasn't going to book Rudy Ray Moore or
Right.
Blowfly,
Right.
You know.
And speaking of, she auditioned for Ed Sullivan, but she didn't make it
failed the
through. She
audition.
flunked.
Like
so.
early comics that made it, Toady Fields,
Mm-hmm.
who else?
I mean, even as
Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers was a pioneer. Yeah.
I mean, Sophie Tucker's, that's really going back, and
Sophie
yeah,
Tucker
you
was a
really-
little risque
yeah,
for that time.
For that time.
Yeah, Mae West.
And then Belle and Toady got a little dirtier. Kept
Yeah.
going, kept pushing the envelope a little bit.
So tell us about her, because the average person really doesn't know that much.
Sure. Well, she hailed from Brooklyn, New York.
As do I.
Yeah, and she was Jewish, and she let's see, she graduated in 1929. So then after high school she auditioned actually at the Loch Sheldrake Hotel. So she really began her career. She also was a singer and kind of wanted to start off doing that mostly, but discovered that she had this talent for comedy and began telling jokes in the Catskills. But she dared to tell jokes that maybe that men were telling at that time. So she really opened doors without knowing it at the time, particularly.
And for those who are too young to really know the Catskills scene, my mother would go to the Catskills.
Yeah.
Buddy Hackett used to ask my mom out.
Oh, I love
and she would say no, because he wasn't handsome like Mr. Craven here. Buddy Hackett looked like Buddy Hackett. And true story. And she saw all those great Catskills comedians, Henny Youngman, and Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin. That was a real scene.
Yeah.
The New Yorkers during the summer would head to that Catskills because it was cooler.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful in the Catskills.
Yeah.
And they had all these resorts, and it's almost like a lost piece of history.
Sure, surely, yeah.
So what's your role in the show?
My role is I'm every man in her life.
Oh, okay.
So I'm everything from her father to the first man she has relations
she was
with
married
to
5 times,
one of her
so-
husbands to a potential husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he fills a lot of shoes.
Now, history will tell you that Lenny Bruce in the 50s took a lot of heat. He was actually arrested many times on stage because of his risque humor. How is it that even earlier she was getting away with this.
She did get away with it, but she was arrested a few times as well.
Wow.
For some really, I don't want to mention the one thing, but
No, this is internet. You can say
if
whatever
do
you
some
want.
reading, I mean, she actually she went to the bathroom on stage one night and was taken away for that.
But why did she do that? That sounds more punk rock to me.
She really loved. She figured if she was getting in trouble, she might as well make it worth it.
Interesting.
And I think people know their brand too, and she probably knew that would get people talking and get people coming to the show. But she really, and Lenny Bruce actually opened for her.
Wow.
I believe in Miami Beach, because that really became a scene. Then in the 60s, Miami Beach was really a big scene and the biggest comedy capital pretty much, and she opened her own club.
We have stand-up comedians on the show all the time. I mean, pro stand-ups, and they tell me even in 2018, because America is so split politically, that they're very conscious of what they say, because in 1 second you could alienate half the audience.
Absolutely.
And so I could only imagine going back 75 years or whatnot, what this woman went through.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, and that's what makes it so fun to play her night after night, finding these new things. And I'm always keeping in mind, we have an amazing book by Joanne Cook, and then music and lyrics by Ilya Levinson and Owen Colt. And every time I'm up there, so I'm doing this great script and performing these great songs, and at the same time I'm thinking of these wild stories where I'm like, that she had the audacity to do some of this stuff is just pretty amazing.
So really, she was ahead of her time.
Oh yeah.
And unfortunately, history has not been kind to her, because most people would not know her.
Right. So that's why we're here.
That's great. No, that's great. It's always nice, especially the internet, as horrific as the internet could be,
Right.
with all the fighting and debating. Sometimes somebody who has not attained the fame they should have still have that cult following on the internet, where their music, their videos, whatever the case may be, survive. Is there a lot of video content of her available?
No.
There is zero video content. There are recordings, so you can. It's funny, you can hear the subtle nuances, and of course you can hear timing and stuff like that. But there's no video because she was never on television. So
do you know that even in the 1960s, Sam Cooke, the R&B singer, who had a billboard in Times Square, there's no complete concert footage of him.
oh wow,
You have
I
you
didn't
have
know
you have
that.
you have individual songs. He was on
Yeah.
Ed Sullivan or whatnot, but there's not a complete concert of Sam Cooke.
That's a shame.
So now you're going even further back with her.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a shame when somebody is that talented, where history is not kind to them.
Yeah. Now you wonder if there's one floating around somewhere in someone's
There
attic.
could be. There could very well. Every so often, like in some attic somewhere at a
Just-
garage sale or yard sale or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
they'll find some lost footage, and it's like the holy grail to
Right.
somebody like yourself.
Right.
But I remember as a kid with Ed Sullivan and Merv Griffin and all of those talk shows. It was very rare to see female comedians. Off the top of my head, I could only think of Toady Fields and Joan Rivers.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure there were others, but
Sure.
it was a tough business.
Yeah.
Tough business. So, where do you hope to take the show down the road?
We hope to keep on doing it because it's a lot of fun. We'd love to do some regional touring with it, and just really bring this story to the masses. She deserves
Our
this.
producers are hoping that we'll do 3 to 4 week sit downs in different cities,
Yeah.
Okay.
and next year hopefully.
But I would think with a strong female character who was ahead of her time, I don't see why you couldn't take this to Theater Row or even Broadway down the road. It's,
Hey.
no,
Your mouth to
seriously.
God's ears.
I mean, you keep hearing today they like films and theater with strong female leads because, it's just the time is right now.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's what's really nice about our show. Our producer and our director, Jimmy Ferrara, worked really hard with the writers and the composer to make sure that the show had some sense of telling the audience who she was.
Yeah.
And created some scene work, which is where I get to come into the show, but created some scene work just to give her a real character, so she's not just doing body stand-up. and the music and the lyrics are great, and some of the songs are really phenomenal. So it's a really nice piece of theater as opposed to just going to a stand-up club.
Sure.
So we're not just recreating her stand-up routines. There's a
Yeah.
good taste of it.
Yeah.
But we watch our audiences nightly. Like you were saying, you never know what you're going to get with an audience. And we watch our audiences nightly to see how they're reacting to the material.
Yeah.
And we get a nice, even mix of people who really seem to appreciate the musical theater aspect more. And then some nights, people just want the bawdy jokes and they appreciate the musical theater. But it's always kind of it
interesting
sways
to
back and
see where
forth.
yeah.
Sounds a little like Fanny Bryce, Funny Girl.
It is.
Yeah.
That feel, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Just a little
along
bawdier.
The same
Yeah.
lines, along the same lines, she didn't always have it very easy. So there are some dramatic, poignant moments in the show.
So tell us about her life a little. I mean, beyond the...
Well, she was married a handful of times.
Yeah.
She had, I believe she was the 9th child. I
Yes.
think.
Wow.
Yeah.
You can read up a little bit about her. But yeah, she'd had a handful of husbands, and actually, well, I don't want to give it away, but she does end up with George in the end. But if you come see the show, you'll learn more about that. But and then eventually in I believe 1971, don't quote me on that. I'm a little nervous, taking it off the top of my head here, but passed away in Miami. Because she later on moved to Miami again to open her
All
own
the
club.
Brooklyn Jews moved to Miami.
Yeah. Well, it became a really good. People really associated Miami Beach with her.
Yeah.
So it became her home, and that's where she would do all of her comedy later in life.
Well, and there was definitely her parents had two different visions of what they wanted from her.
Mm-hmm.
Her dad loved her being a comic and loved the attention and the bawdiness of what she was doing, and her mom despised it.
Wow.
Her mom, she had piano lessons all through her childhood, and her mother wanted her to be a pianist.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And she eventually does play at Carnegie Hall, but it bombs because she doesn't do her humor because her mother's there.
Wow.
But she has this really beautiful, beautiful relationship with her father. And her father really always pushed her to believe in herself and tell dirty jokes, and because he was very outgoing and very much like that. So we also explore that relationship and how it influences her throughout her life, and definitely that moment at Carnegie Hall when she kind of she's faced with, what am I going to do? Because they kind of told her right before, you have 3 minutes to decide here. You can't tell dirty jokes. Lenny Bruce has been arrested.
Yeah.
We found out
Lenny Bruce played Carnegie Hall, though.
Yeah. But what they had found out about was there was a lawsuit that was made against her by 2 older school teachers who felt that her comedy mentally challenged them mentally and really decided to sue over
Wow.
that.
Wow.
And I believe it was $1.6
Million.
million dollars.
Wow.
So they claimed to never be the same, and just
They were traumatized by her act.
yeah, just traumatized. So
And Sarah will show a few of those jokes, tell a few of those jokes
yeah, I'll
later.
tell a few of those jokes for you guys.
And you'll be traumatized. And
Yeah, that's right. And I'll sue
There'll
you
be a
for
lawsuit.
1.6. No, this is 2018. I'll triple it.
it'd be billions by now.
That's right. It's interesting with comedy because I have comedians who are friends, and they're very concerned that at any given moment somebody whips out the camera. You said something politically incorrect. You said something, sexist, whatever the case may be. Next thing, you're public enemy #1 on YouTube.
Right.
So even today, there's that. The performer has to kind of walk a tightrope.
Yeah.
And
you have to. It's funny, especially with body jokes. You have to be okay with saying it because they can feel if you're not completely 100% there. So even though it's dirty and you're about to say something real raunchy, you got to be in it to win it. And then, you give them a little while and they'll, oh, okay. I feel comfortable. We can settle into this. But yeah, like you said, it's always, it's scary. I mean, ooh.
There's a comment that Belle makes in real life that she says, I do dirty cute. Yeah. And our producer and our creative team love Sarah for that because she does dirty cute.
Yeah.
You don't feel like she's in your face.
Right. See,
making it horrid.
Professional comedians will tell you there is no taboo, but the timing. So, for example, I've heard black comedians do slavery jokes. I've heard Jewish comedians do Holocaust jokes. I've heard 9/11 jokes, but you can't do it on 9/12. If you do it on 9/12, they will boo you off the stage.
Right.
So you have not only do you have to know your audience, you have to know what the line is.
Yeah.
And
It's a tension. It's a tension
yeah.
balance. Yeah.
Because I'm a fan of comedy, and I mean, to me, Richard Pryor was like at the Mount Rushmore.
Sure.
Richard Pryor and guys like that, Lenny Bruce, George Carlin, and the language was always strong and it never offended me. I'm not prudish, but you know, comedians today are very scared of that. You know, colleges, for example, they're hypersensitive. Okay, so anything could turn the audience against you.
Sure.
And once that first person starts walking out, it's taking the show away from you. The focus is on
Right.
you know,
Right.
it's tough. It's tough even today. And she was at her peak 75 years ago or
Right.
more.
Yes.
I mean, so even today, it's not an easy gig.
And what's so interesting about that, the kind of, so when she's at Carnegie Hall and she decides, okay, I'm going to go with this, I'm going to clean it up, and she's not true to herself, that you watch the audience basically turn on her because they're used to hearing the records. That's what they came and wanted to hear,
Right.
because that's her. But in thinking that she's going to save herself and you know, play at Carnegie Hall respectfully, and she ruins it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, but watching the audience turn all at once is kind of heartbreaking, and they'll do that.
Wow. So tell us a little about yourselves beyond this play. Any other career highlights that you'd like to tell us about?
David?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, we both have traveled a lot doing regional theater, and Sarah's done cruise ships before with Norwegian, and I mean, I love the old musicals. I'm a legit
me too.
baritone, so I've done Oklahoma 3 times as Curly, and Forever Plaid, which is a 4-person men's show. I love doing that show.
So here's
but
my
now I'm
big-
aging out of those. Now I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay.
Don't
It's like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So now I play lots of characters.
Gordon McRae was no kid when he did Oklahoma.
I know, right? I just need a
So why
bigger
are you
house.
aging out? Anyway, here's my big question. Like, as somebody, I'm middle-aged, obviously. I grew up on West Side Story and Funny Girl and My Fair Lady, these absolute classics. Is Hamilton worth $800? I mean, can you compare anything to West Side Story? I mean,
It's different. It's like I imagine it's like having a bunch of kids. You know how parents are like, you love them all in a different way.
I love
You know?
hip hop. I have rappers on the show all the time, but I'm just saying, can you top these classics? Where do you get these prices? Springsteen on Broadway, $800. I mean,
And you want everyone to be exposed to it. You know what I mean? You want them to go to the theater. So let's say it's worth it artistically, sure.
it's like
But it's a lot.
It's like I go see Hello Dolly tomorrow for $50 or $75, but I'm not going to mortgage my house,
right.
to go see a show.
I'll go out on a limb and be unpopular and say I think in 30 years we'll still be seeing the old musicals, and we won't be seeing some of the musicals that are big now.
Absolutely.
I won't say which ones, but
Well, these jukebox musicals often, sometimes the music's great, but Motown was no classic. I mean, the music's classic, but the show itself is no masterpiece.
Right.
West Side Story is like the highest level of art you could attain, whether it's in the theater or on screen.
Right.
I mean, you can't top that.
right. We have those discussions occasionally.
Yeah. So we agree on West Side Story. Anyway, we're gonna wrap this up. Please give us all the details on the show. And
Okay, our show runs through July 22nd. You can get tickets. It's Raunchy Little Musical. You can find us online at www.raunchylittlemusical.com.
appropriately named. Yeah.
So hard to find. And we can find us also at the landmarkonmainstreet.org. So landmarkonmainstreet.org. And the phone number for the people who still love a phone, 516-767-1384. I'll say that again, 516-767-1384.
Okay. And plug your own social media.
SarahDelBito.com,
And spell that,
SARA, D as in dog, EL, B as in boy, EATO.com. I'm primarily a jazz vocalist as well. So, I've got some fun media on my website, and now you can keep up with upcoming shows.
Who are some of the jazz singers that influenced you?
Ella Fitzgerald, of course, Dinah Washington, Julie London.
You know who
Peggy
blew
Lee.
me away every time? Sarah Vaughan.
Sarah Vaughan.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, all of it. And I also love a lot of male. Bobby
Annie
Darin
Ross.
is one of my favorite.
Annie Ross.
Yeah.
Lambert Hendricks and Ross.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Bobby Darin was great.
Bobby Darin is one of my biggest idols. Yeah.
And who were some of the people that influenced you?
Oh, well, I love legit singers. So, like Dawn Upshaw is an opera singer who does some musical theater.
Okay.
Her placement's impeccable. I don't know. I mean, I grew up in Memphis, so of course I heard Elvis.
Memphis, yeah.
Not too shabby. Elvis. Is...
I went to Al Green's church in Memphis. It was the greatest thing I've ever seen. Al Green, nobody touches Al Green.
No.
I'm from the Al Green, Marvin Gaye, Bobby Womack school. I'm an R&B guy. But I love musical theater. I mean, you can't top a great musical.
Yeah.
So when we come back, Sarah's going to sing for us live in studio. So we're going to take a very brief time out. This is the Evan Ginzburg Show at villageconnectionradio.com. And sadly, our last show in this studio. So should be interesting. We'll be right back, folks, with Sarah.
Got me good in a hope that I just can't diffuse. But I know, the tricks up your sleeve. 'Cause you and I used to sing just to pass by the time. And I can't let go without a partial thought to where our song may flow. Some ring away, but the echo of yours seem to stay. And lately when I listen close, what I hear may be fake. So you be real now, and I'll be honest, that what we've got here is truly harmonic. And I can search just to hear the same sound play. But why would I when you're standing here right in front of me? Truly harmonic. Oh, you've got me good. It's a concept I just can't refuse. But you had to see through what seemed without flaw. You may say that this anthem of ours wrong away. Maybe it's true. So when this sound leaves my ear, I can't help but to sing it again. Hope that if I sing it out, maybe you'll comprehend. I've been around now, and all is silent. What we've got here is truly harmonic. So when you think of me and the lyrics that we used to sing, and take them for then what they appear. So all along, I'll admit that it's all just a song, but maybe it's more than singing to me. Do we exist if the sound of our music stops playing? 'Cause maybe the next time around things won't be the same without exchange. So you be real now, and I'll be honest, we've got here is truly harmonic. And I can search just to hear the same sound play. But why would I when you're standing here right in front of me? Truly harmonic.
From Raunchy Little Musical, Sarah Del Beto, and you could see Raunchy Little Musical at the Landmark on Main in Port Washington.
The 1950s were so bland. It seemed like having fun was banned. The nation had a memory lapse. Sex was hidden under wraps. On the fringes there was I, pulling down the country's fly. Lust was found where lights were low, hiding in my nightclub show. Dirty little secrets, everybody had 'em. Dirty little secrets underneath a quilt. Dirty little secrets, every sir and madam feeling lots of guilt. Quick, what's another name for an anteater? An uncle.
Yeah.
Society was so uptight that sex itself seemed impolite. Couples slept in separate beds. Maidens never lost their heads. All of this was great for me. My act was a novelty. Jokes about fellatio made the people love me so. A sleazy guy pulls up to a drive-in. A sexy waitress skates over to take his order. He propositions her. She takes out a paper bag, blows it up, hands it to him. He says, "What's this?" She says, "A blowjob, to go." Dirty little secrets, records that were bawdy. Dirty little secrets under lock and key. Dirty little secrets, people felt so naughty listening to me. Did you hear about the new sexual position? It's called 68. It means you do me and I'll owe you one. Speaking of new positions, a newly married daughter calls her mother. "Ma, I've got to get a divorce." "But you've only been married a month. What's wrong?" "He only wants anal, intercourse." "So new?" "So when we wed, my asshole was the size of a dime. Now it's the size of a quarter." "So for 15 cents you're leaving?" Dirty little secrets, I like to explore them. Dirty karaoke stage. Private little secrets in a public forum made me all the rage.
Whoa. All right. Sarah Delvino, David Craven, raunchy little musical, landmark on Main and Port Washington. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And please come back when you can.
Thank you so
All
much.
right. All right, that'll about do it for that segment, folks. When we come back, we're going to talk the arts with poet John Winnell. We're going to talk movies and TV with Dan Shaggy, Matt Haberman, and our own Randy Unger. So, and we're going to end the show with a poetry set by John Winnell. So we have a lot ahead of you. Thank you so much, folks. This is the Evan Ginzburg Show at villageconnectionradio.com. We will be right back.
She keeps a loaded suitcase under her bed. She knows someday she'll need to run from here. She's got nowhere to go, but everything to wear. When life has left her empty, she's learned to fill her head and leave the pain behind for someone else. She never had it easy, never seemed to care. Goodbye, 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 Angeline. Wave goodbye, 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 Angeline. Never had a reason, she'll never be ashamed. Never had the answers to learn the games. And everything she had was everything she gave. Wave goodbye, 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 Angeline. Wave goodbye, 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 Angeline. She's seen a lot of heartache, seen a lot of pain. Never had the bright lights, never wanted to change. She lived life like it's over, tomorrow never came. Wave goodbye, 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 Angeline. Wave goodbye, 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 Angeline. Goodbye. No, goodbye, Angeline. Wave goodbye. No, goodbye, Angeline. Don't you know you'll always be my baby blue? And I'm so sorry, yeah, for what I put you through. It won't be long till I'm lying next to you. I'll always be there to give you a push on through. It's just me and you and Spider-Man, my baby blue. My baby blue. And does your mother tell you there'll always be days like this? Yeah. To her love. Well, I guess it is. Yeah. It won't be long till I'm lying next to you. I'll always be there to give you a push on through. Just me and you and Spider-Man, my baby blue. My baby blue. I call to see you every day. It's the same old answer anyway. I sure hope you remember.
All right, we are back with the Evan Ginzburg Show at Village Connection Radio. And Jim Savali, tell us who we've been listening to.
That was Little Baby Blue by Dean James Silva.
Okay.
He's a local musician. You know, we always play local music. We like to push that.
And speaking of local, we'd like to thank our sponsors, TimothyDarkMusic.net, Great Hip Hop Meets Rock, Dr. Scott Bernstein, DDS, and Frederick Gilbert Bourne, Forgotten Titan of the Gilded Age book. And very soon, we're going to add some new sponsors and going to a new studio. So there's always exciting
onward
things.
and upward, Evan.
That's right, onward and upward.
Evan is one of my first steady shows.
That's right.
I think you have the longest running show right now.
Over a year.
I think you have the longest running show right now.
Okay, I lose track, but
Yeah, I think so.
my favorite show on the station is Monty and the Pharaoh.
Well, yeah, wow.
That's a great show. I like when Jimmy Farrow gets so emotional over wrestling. He's about to cry.
I like when he cries. I like when that's always it. We should try and push him on every episode now.
True. I'm gonna remind him about Greg Valentine and Bob Backlund. See if we can get him to cry. But
no, those guys are great. That's a great show.
Yeah. And that's Thursday nights from 8 to 9, I believe?
Yep.
There you go.
8:05, actually.
8:05, right.
Now, there's some type of wrestling meeting with the 8:05.
TBS, the NWA, used to be at 8:05.
Okay, there you go.
So
See?
it has
I'm learning, Mike. I'm learning.
It has significance. And speaking of significant, we have a world-class poet and arts maven in John Winnell. And at the very end of the show, John's going to do a poetry set. But right now we're going to talk arts because I don't know one human being who does more than John as far as movies, theater, music, and even in a few weeks, he's done more than most human beings do in a year. So tell us what you've seen recently, what you recommend.
Well, there's a few revivals which I still feel are the best as far as the contemporary movie scene. I had the fortune of seeing actually a Barry Levinson's first film, Dinah, which has Mickey Rourke in it, amongst other people that went on to great stardom, was just fantastic.
I acted with Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler and didn't go on to great stardom, so
that was
okay.
much later in his career.
That's right.
I mean, everybody's so great in that. That's my favorite of the Barry Levinson films.
I love Avalon. That movie is so moving. For those who don't know, Barry Levinson directed a film called Avalon. Came out maybe 1990 or so.
Yeah, a few years after Dinah.
And in the very first scene in the movie, you have an immigrant coming to America. It's July 4th, 1900, and he sees this unbelievable fireworks display, and he thinks this is normal. He thinks this is like every day, and he's like, this is America, you know? And they come to the country. It's based on a true story. The family comes to the country, and they have nothing. And as they attain success, the more successful they are, the more the family dissolves. The irony of it.
There's a lot of truth in that. I mean,
It's a beautiful film, Avalon, if you haven't seen it.
He's a great director. Now I think he's doing a lot of TV stuff, and he's working a lot with Al Pacino. I think he did thing about Phil Spector, Madoff. Then he did the thing about Paterno. I mean,
I just saw Paterno. I saw the Madoff film also, and they're both excellent films. And Al Pacino as Paterno was a great performance.
Al Pacino's always. I think Pacino. When I told you, I'll tell the audience. A few months ago, Pacino had come out with something that he'd been working on, a theater piece in Los Angeles. So he was in New York. It's actually I think the big thing was the anniversary of Scarface, but I was able to catch Pacino in a small theater talking about these films that he did. I think it was Salome, but what he really was fascinating was after the films were finished, he basically spoke about his career for about an hour and a half. I mean, everything. And I just was lucky, one of like 7 non-industry people in the audience.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
so
there's very few film icons that are still alive. There's plenty of quote-unquote movie stars, but when you think of the Sidney Poitiers and Clint Eastwoods and Al Pacinos and Robert De Niro's, there's not a mountain of them.
Very, very few. I think once the studio system crashed, which was, I guess, the 70s, maybe Deer Hunter was the end, or the other one, the same director, Cimino, Heaven's Gate. That was the end.
Well, Heaven's Gate was a financial bust.
But it's actually a terrific movie.
Yeah.
With Chris Christopherson and a young Isabelle Huppert.
Yeah, yeah. So what else have you seen recently?
Then, in addition to those, I've been treating myself, luckily, seen a lot of Alfred Hitchcock films.
Wow.
Which those are... I try to stay away from Psycho because it always scares the life out of me, but I kind of manned up. If you could believe it, I saw Diner as a matinee and then Psycho a few hours after, and it still scared the heck out of me. Yeah. It's so terrifying.
Yeah, they said that, that I believe it was 1960?
1960.
They said that people were scared to take showers after that.
Yeah, it's a... I mean, it still has a wallop. Yeah. Anthony Perkins is... that's probably the greatest thing he ever did.
And what was the point decades later? They did a shot-by-shot remake in color, a different
Gus
director.
Van Sant,
what was that about?
I think just an homage to how amazing that film is. I never saw that. What would be the point?
Well, that's my question. What would be the point? Just to see it in color? I
think Gus Van Sant, like most filmmakers are obsessed. Alfred Hitchcock, when he was alive, didn't get... I think he always had the respect, but wasn't taken as seriously as now when we look back.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the 10 most important directors that ever lived. He learned a lot. He was making films in the silent era. He worked in Germany, UFA Studios, with those great filmmakers. Some of them, Fritz Lang, who I also recently watched M, which I think is
a masterpiece.
One of the 10 greatest films ever, in my opinion, ever made. Shot by shot, you're looking at camera angles and story plot. You're on the edge of your seat, like in all those. I recently watched The Birds, North by Northwest.
I've come to the conclusion that even if I live to 115, which I most likely won't,
maybe
you could watch 3 movies a day. You're never going to catch up with, just how many masterpieces there are in world cinema. I don't mean commercial hits that play every day on cable, but there's so many great films that you just have never seen.
That's true. I mean, I give it the good old college try to see.
Yeah.
But there's still, like, I never saw Gilda, for example, with Rita Hayworth, who was the greatest sex pot you can't even imagine. You've never seen Gilda. And it's Glenn Ford, probably the best that he ever was. A young Glenn Ford. It was made right after the war, 1946. From the second that she's introduced till the very end, Rita Hayworth is so steamy, and they show nothing. It's all imagination.
Right.
There's no nudity, but it doesn't. You don't need it. You still want to. My lord, I mean, you know.
Did you see Bombshell, Hedy Lamarr?
I saw that.
That was great. The documentary.
She was brilliant, Hedy Lamarr. She came up with that invention of alternating currents, so the Nazis couldn't come, break the code as far as transmissions. It's still used, and of course, I don't think she got a nickel. She worked with a composer, I forget his name, on that patent.
Right.
That's fantastic, Hedy Lamarr, who made films also. She was, speaking of sex pots, right? She was a sex pot too.
The second you said that, I thought of Hedy Lamarr.
Yeah,
from that
how
era.
many? Of course, everybody knows Marilyn Monroe, but there's so many. Jane Russell.
And what have you seen musically?
Musically, recently, I haven't seen a lot of concerts. I'm going to see Jim will like this. I actually got tickets. I was very lucky. I won the lottery. Of course, I paid for it to see Springsteen on Broadway. Nice. So I'm seeing him in a few weeks. Just got very, very lucky. Well, they weren't cheap, but I thought about it.
That's not luck. That you bought the tickets.
Well, it's luck to win the lottery, and then I had the choice.
I'd rather win Lotto myself, but
the same thing with I could have gotten Hamilton tickets, but it wasn't until February, and they were expensive, and I didn't feel like waiting till February. So Springsteen is in a few weeks.
No, my mom, whenever something was too far ahead in the future, she would go, "I could be dead by then."
I mean,
it's in February. I could be dead by then. So she lived to 83. So most of the time, she wasn't dead by then.
That's true. But I'm trying to save a little. Although, I'm traveling to Europe in a few months to really take in going to see the old world. I'm going to Holland. Was never in Holland, so I figured I'm going to go to Rembrandt's house. Of course, he's not living there anymore, and Van Gogh's house. I met somebody from the Holland Tourist Bureau, so I shared with her. I wrote a poem about Van Gogh, so I shared that with her, and then she gave me all this information, where to go. So I have all these tips that aren't necessarily in the books. Well, so she made it a little easier for me. But before I go, I'm seeing Paul Simon. He's doing 3 shows in New York, 2 at the Garden, and then 1, I think, in Flushing Meadow Park, which is not free, which is a pay gig, but I'm seeing at the Garden, and then I'm seeing Elton, but that's in November. And then I think seeing probably the greatest contemporary blues band, white, it's like a mix, black-white band, Tedeschi Trucks, Wheels of Soul. I'm seeing them. So in between Paul Simon and Tedeschi Trucks, I'm going to go to and from Holland. So it's keeping me busy, but I haven't been out of the country in a long time.
Wow. Yeah, see the world, folks. I know people that have never left New York. They just...
I remember working with kids. Some of them never left their neighborhood.
Yeah.
To go up to 14th Street. Well, I know we're on the island, but I guess this is global. It's really amazing. People are just...
It was like me and you when we got lost before, driving around Huntington and seeing these $1 million homes. We drove right by the Jim Savali estate. It was like a $5 million mansion. And... some beautiful homes in this town.
Yeah, very exciting. Well, listen, if you got it, why not? And if you don't, you just have to, like I do. I'm like what's that? The ant and the grasshopper. I'm squirreled all my money away so I could take these trips.
My entire life, I've lived in one-bedroom apartments. I wouldn't even know what it's like to live in a house.
No, I mean, you got to deal with all the headaches of having a house. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I don't know from like lawnmowers or I'm a city guy.
You're not missing anything.
Yeah.
Believe me.
Maybe a pool would be nice.
Pool's
to have a
nice.
Pool, right? Trying to think what else. What other? Well, I saw the Blue Man Group. They were fun.
Okay.
And they've
been running like forever.
I remember years ago I met one of those guys online. I think it's like their 25th anniversary. I figured it's amazing. They've been around for 25 years, and I've just first gotten to see them. So, but it was fun. They had a lot of, they're doing a lot of shows, and they're still really popular, although the theater's really small.
Yeah, I saw them years ago. They've been running forever.
Yeah, they're downtown right by the Public Theater.
Yeah, not far from Dallas Barbecue.
That's right.
Yeah, my landmarks are always like cheap places to eat. Dallas Barbecue.
That's probably the last place left. On St. Mark's, you go there. I don't even recognize the neighborhood. I don't know where I am anymore.
And I saw, and John saw her previously, the great Avery Sunshine. And if you love R&B, especially like Ashford and Simpson, because she plays with her husband. And what a beautiful voice and this unbelievable personality. And every time I see her, the room is packed. She has a real cult following. We saw her at City Winery.
Yeah, that's a nice
And
venue.
I saw her just now at Highline Ballroom. So she fills sizable rooms.
That's a nice room.
And what a tremendous, tremendous performer. If you like Stephanie Mills, Patti LaBelle, Avery Sunshine is just... It's like a happy pill. You just walk out. It's like you float. Right, John? You were there.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, it's really there's like less and less regular clubs to see musical acts now in the city.
The rents are obscene. B.B. King's just closed.
That was sad. Yeah,
I walked by a boarded B.B. King's, and it was like the saddest feeling. I must have seen 50 shows there.
Oh, yeah, I went there many times myself.
Bootsy, Larry Graham,
And everybody.
El DeBarge, everybody. I mean, the nights we had at that place, and Martha Wash, and just one great after another.
And they were reasonable tickets.
And you're right on top of the stage. There's not a bad seat in there.
Larry Graham walking in from the back all the way to the stage, playing the bass with that feather in his hat.
Yeah.
Just tearing the roof
War, the Delphonics, Kid Creole and the Coconuts. I mean, Bobby Rush. The great Bobby Rush.
So where's Bobby Rush going to play
George
now?
Clinton. Well, there's always other places to play, but I'm just saying the history at B.B. King's to be shut down because of horrific rents. I mean, what about the arts in New York? See, what's happening is they're moving to Brooklyn. Then the rents skyrocket in Brooklyn. Now there's starting to be a scene in Staten Island because the rents are smaller.
Wow.
Yeah, musician friends are telling me. I don't just mean the St. George Theater. I mean clubs because the rents are smaller. Like when I was booking Gizzy's at 16 West 8th, the rents were ridiculous. And that was 5 years ago. So a small business hangs by a thread. But part of what makes New York great is the arts, and if you can't keep a venue sustainable because the rent is oppressive, this is something these politicians should deal with.
Well, I think unfortunately the politicians are part of the problem.
Well, the politicians are owned by the real estate interests, whether right-wing or left-wing. The real estate people own the politicians, pay for their campaigns, so they're fighting for the real estate people, not for the renters, not for the small...
It's sad, even apartments. I mean, I'm fortunate to have rent control, but that goes up too. That goes up every 2 years.
Oh, what about a mom and pop business who have a 5 or 7 year lease, and all of a sudden the lease is up, and they have legally the right to double or triple the rent?
Yeah, businesses.
And you've put 7 years of hard work, and legally we could triple your rent. That's obscene.
It's very sad. It's a different city now. It shouldn't
It's
be.
ruthless.
shouldn't be that way.
Ruthless.
Should go really back to the people as far as that. I mean, now I think everything seems to be on the internet, but even still, it's nice. I always found I enjoyed always walking into those stores where it was personal, where they had their own heart, life, where they knew where everything was.
So now what'll happen when that space that had BB King's comes back? It'll be a drugstore or a bank, because those are the only people that could afford the rent.
Yeah, because you have probably be a drugstore because you have the downstairs. I mean, it's an enormous amount of space.
Yeah, but we don't need another drugstore.
I agree. We need another music venue.
We need a non-profit for poets.
Well, that would be nice.
A space for poets.
I remember that. I used to play places that are still there. Place that I used to read on Avenue C in the city. I think they're still there.
I used to go to jazz lofts in the 70s and 80s and see Sun Ra and, these unbelievable musicians, and that's gone now. They can't afford it.
Yeah, they knocked all those down.
Yeah.
In the 20s, I remember somebody I used to know, she was married to a drummer who had passed on, and she was a bass player. So that whole scene, she used to have readings and concerts right out of the loft. It was one of those railroad flats. It was so much fun reading there or just going to those parties, and people would just pick up an instrument and just play.
I read an article about jazz musicians living in New York, and even if you do everything right, it's a struggle. Even if you're great, you have some kind of promotion, you have a label, whatever the case may be, it's a struggle.
Jazz is impossible.
Blues is a vow of poverty. Forget it.
With jazz, at least in the old days, they would have big bands. Now it's very expensive. I remember at Cooper Union they did a night for Jimmy Heath where he did the charts for a big band, and they also did one for Frank West, who played with Ellington and Basie. And it was, even to see that was a thrill. See Jimmy Heath and Jimmy Heath. He brought Dizzy Gillespie to faculty at Queens College.
Yeah.
So this is going back. But now, how these jazz guys, they either have to teach at university or on a high school level in order to be able to survive, or have somebody else in the family working, or have a low rent. It's just impossible to be a musician in the city. But poetry is like next to...
Yeah.
The poets that really are doing okay, again, they have, or writers, they have university.
Yeah.
Like even Allen Ginsberg, who's not my favorite poet, but he was teaching at Brooklyn College.
Sure. Well, I've taught for decades, and radio and independent film have not sustained me. So,
Very hard.
But I love teaching. I teach adults.
Well, you're lucky. You're very lucky. Well, it's a different situation.
If Allen Ginsberg could teach with no shame, if Sandra Cisneros' house on Mango Street could teach college with no shame, I could admit that.
A lot of people.
I've taught. Yeah.
I think Philip Roth taught classes.
See, what people don't understand
Nabokov.
is an author, unless it's a Stephen King, somebody, they're getting 10% of a book sale. 10%. So if the book is $20, you're getting $2.
They got to sell a lot of books.
A lot of books. So
No,
teaching,
I know.
teaching you sustain.
I'm trying to get my next volume. I'll get a fraction of This editor said to me, poetry. If I didn't know this already, it's not lucrative. Now, if you could believe it.
Wait. We have a scoop, folks. Poetry is not lucrative.
I think these days, teen fiction seems to be what's
Self-help is what sells.
I guess that too.
No, really. Self-help is the but bestseller in America. Because people can't live their own lives, and they need somebody to tell them how to. But
that's right. Curl up in the bowling alley every so often. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
some of it you can learn from. Like I enjoyed Wayne Dyer, but you can't live your life through somebody else's.
Well, he's certainly hoping you can, but
he's gone now.
Well, in those days, all those guys. I mean, yeah, I guess that and teen fiction. I heard some report.
You should write teen fiction. You could be the next teen idol.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, no, but serious, like 7-figure deals these guys are getting
Wow.
for writing teen fiction.
Wow.
Teen fiction. A lot of teens.
I didn't know
like-
teens were still reading. I thought they was on their cell phone.
Apparently, some of them are.
A few of them are reading. That's good. Reading's a good thing.
It sure is. You know, you never know.
So tell the folks where they could get your book.
Yeah, again, the few that are left, but I'm trying to work on the second one. You know, knock on something. Is JONWINELL at Facebook or Yahoo. You can contact me and we could work something out. A few that are left, and again, like I said, I'm trying to contact agents and editors and things, and really getting another serious, edition out there. So
Okay, so now I'm going to put you on the spot, and I want you to be perfectly honest. You saw the film that I was associate producer on the other day, 350 Days, and tell the folks your honest opinion of it, like a little review. And I could take constructive criticism. So what up?
I think it's like the little engine that could. I think it's considering the roots that it was done, a non-professional film that was shot. It was interviews with. It was an interesting film because it's a subject that I know basically through osmosis, through you. So I've learned. I've never seen. I mean, I remember as a kid seeing some, things in flashes, but it was certainly interesting. It's well edited.
And for those who don't know, this is about professional wrestling. They were on the road 350 days a year, the legendary wrestlers.
I mean, it takes these legendary guys and it makes them human. So they talk about things outside of the ring. I mean, a lot of, we know of, you don't. I mean, it gets you into the nitty gritty of these people that basically sacrifice, which is what you have to do in anything. But here it shows these guys that got really mashed up in the ring from falls and hits that people wouldn't necessarily know about. But it tells you about everything. Some of the things are the not the glamorous things. The partying, which goes, that's like the rock and roll lifestyle. I think it was well done. You had colorful, charismatic individuals that are looking back.
Superstar Billy Graham.
Right. So, some of them are still wrestling, like your friend Valentine. It's certainly interesting. For an amateur production to get to be shown.
When you say amateur, it's an independent film. No monster corporation behind it. It's an independent film.
Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
at times, with the sound, it could have been tweaked a little bit. But that's just from my own ears, because, I'm used to hearing, really great sound. So, but then there were also times where I thought the sound kind of stepped on some of the interviews, so you couldn't hear. But there was just a little like tweaks, that I would still do. But considering an independent film made by guys way out of a studio system, which got some, credence from being involved with Paramount, I don't know if directly or indirectly, I think you guys pulled off something successfully. It's very commendable and it's worth seeing. I think when it comes out, if it gets distributed on DVD or on the internet or Netflix or something like that, which it should be, I think people should watch it.
Well, a friend from Paramount advised us, but we're not affiliated with Paramount.
I didn't think so. Right. It's too small. But think about if it had a monster budget and you had these guys coming in that could have even. So without that, I think it's very, very, very commendable. It's worth seeing.
Thank you.
And
you're a non-wrestler. You've never watched wrestling in your life. So.
Maybe I remember just blips of it. So without having any knowledge, just watching, just having an interest in human beings and human nature and the story of, trials and tribulations of people, I found that interesting.
Thank you. And I'll be critiquing your poetry set right after. I'm joking. I'm joking.
That's okay.
I know you're a film buff who has seen the best of the best, and that's a nice review for somebody who's not a wrestling fan.
I mean, I liked also the fact that you have a guy like Jimmy Snuka working with animals,
Yeah.
and him getting licked by the tiger and the giraffes and feeding a little bear cub with milk. I just found that really terrific.
Yeah, big tough guy being
Right.
gentle. Yeah.
Just that was to really, and Wendy
Richter.
working in a horse farm or what. I just found that really, really touching. I mean, it was, it's a human story, and human beings have dark and light, successes and this underbelly stuff too. But it's honest, which is what I liked about it as well. It doesn't shy away from, the other side.
I was very pleased that several people in the audience who were not wrestling fans really enjoyed it. And that's what we set out to do, because the wrestling fans are going to come see it anyway. So if you could show, an 80-year-old grandmother who has no interest in wrestling the movie and she enjoys it just because it's human interest.
Right.
Because basically it's about the sacrifices they made over 350 days, a year on the road, the toll it took on their body, their psyche, their families, their marriages. And, you don't have to be a boxing fan to enjoy Rocky. You don't have to be a wrestling fan to enjoy The Wrestler.
Right. I mean it's all...
yeah.
I mean, even back to Body and Soul, which is, I think...
John Garfield.
Yeah, I think it's... I mean, of course, there's a lot of... Whether there is in any of them, there's political underpinnings. Body and Soul really being a human interest story about this, and all of that stuff. Literally being in the ring, taking the hits, the jabs of life, whatever, have it, making the money, not making the money.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So I appreciate your support on the film and for your kind words. And John's going to be back at the very end of the show with a live poetry set. And coming up next, we have several film and TV critics who are going to talk about what you should be watching right about now. And we'll take a very brief time out. And when we come back, we'll continue with our all arts edition of the Evan Ginzburg Show, since I'm burnt out on the all wrestling editions of the very same show. So we'll be right back, folks.
I've never done this in my life. On the next tape, I did nothing. Like, it was all adrenaline rushing through me. I did nothing.
Bridges to cover my traces. I found promise in all the wrong places. To bow down, someone put me where I belong. Is all I need. It's the spark to break free. Oh, this century is gonna be the end of me. I favor the force of destruction. I need you here to properly function. Without you here, God only knows what I do. I keep hidden until I'm confronted. I take fire to all that disrupts me. I'll take fire until it'll take me to is all I need. It's a spark to break free. entropy is gonna be the end of me. Now I've been blinded since my first days began. That I live my life, I love if I can. Now ever since, I still haven't given a damn. So blind that I will follow the words of the old man. But how I knew that this would lead to the truth. This life I've been living, these days of my youth. A reason to live, yes, a reason I will not giant world to see, and it's waiting just for me. You can't tell me who I should be, 'cause there's a light inside me guiding me and keeping me free, alive. Well, do you know what it means? Only to follow my heart as it sings. I'm trying to love, I'm fulfilling these long lost dreams.
All right, we're back with the Evan Ginzburg Show at villageconnectionradio.com. And speaking of villageconnectionradio.com, we have Randy Unger from Unger the Radar, which follows us every Sunday at 1 p.m. One-ish, one-ish.
One-ish.
And seated next to Randy, we have Dan Shaggy and Matt Haberman. And we are a group of film critics and pop culture experts. And basically, I'm going to throw out, what are you guys watching? What do you recommend? And we could start with anybody.
Matt.
I'm formulating my thoughts here.
Usually it's summer blockbuster season. It's always my favorite. So I went actually recently. I just saw Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
How does it compare to the others?
It's not the greatest. I will say this: it's better than Jurassic Park 3, because I think Jurassic Park 3 is definitely the worst in all the Jurassic Park franchise.
I'll give it that. I'll give you that. That is definitely a thing.
Yeah. It was a fun movie, Fallen Kingdom.
No.
I thought it was fun.
No.
Oh, wow.
I didn't see it, so I'm leaving it to you guys. I don't know.
We'll keep the spoilers at a minimum.
Yeah. It was predictable. It was just every time you're like, oh, that's going to happen. It happened.
Is a predictable thing the same as a spoiler? Like if he says
No,
something
no,
that's
no,
predictable, is that a spoiler?
No. It's pretty, well, technically, yes.
Yeah.
It didn't have too many spoilers, though.
It didn't have too many spoilers, but it was predictable as I don't know.
I had an interesting conversation on a previous show about expectations, and I'll give you a specific example. When John Wick came out, I had no expectations because it came out of left field, and I'm like, this is awesome. This is awesome. So then when John Wick 2 came out, I'm like, I'm looking forward to this, and I was disappointed because by the 137th killing, I was numb already. Not for 1 second did I feel he was in any danger.
Yeah.
I never thought he was going to die. The first Die Hard with Bruce Willis, I thought maybe he was going to die, so there was real suspense. It becomes like James Bond, where you go, there's 10,000 bullets and explosions, his hair's not messed up, and there's no risk of him dying. So John Wick 2, to me, because of my high expectations, I was disappointed. So if I go to a Jurassic Park movie, I kind of go, okay, we're going to see some good CGI. The dinosaurs are going to fight. but it's not like my life depends on it. I have low
Yeah.
expectations.
Yeah.
I called it paint by Jurassic Park paint by numbers.
Paint by dinosaurs. Yeah.
The movies are literally clones, just like
That's
the
right.
dinosaurs are in the movie. So all of these sequels is just a rehash of what they've done before.
Well, the basis of any movie is you have to care about the characters. So if the characters are in danger from the dinosaurs and you sincerely care about these characters, you're going to be emotionally invested. If the characters are cartoon, paint by number characters, you go, oh, the Tyrannosaurus stepped on the guy's head. Who cares?
Yeah.
So.
And you got Chris Pratt as like the heroic Indiana Jones type. He's not gonna get a scratch. He's just he's the hero. He's gonna survive. You just go in and you know that.
Yeah.
And that's what's disappointing.
You need suspense.
Yeah, you need a twist too.
I'd rather see a bad dinosaur movie, like a Godzilla movie, and you just take it for what it is. And
Yeah. Speaking of which, I think they're doing Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah.
So that should be
I
interesting.
saw that when I was a kid. This will be better, I hope.
Yeah.
Well, it's the new Godzilla versus the new King Kong.
That's
He's
right.
Supposed to be like Kong's supposed to be like the one in Skull Island. He was like kind of like in an infancy. So apparently he's supposed to grow over a set amount of years to get to where Kong is now, and it's supposed to be like.
So this is like a WrestleMania main event.
Pretty much.
These two, yeah. So that should be good. I mean,
Yeah.
just as popcorn entertainment. I am not as big a fan of the comic book movies as you guys. Generally, I watch it, I enjoy it, I appreciate it, and by the next morning, I kind of forget about it. Whether it's Avengers or whatnot. Why do you think Marvel is such a huge force in the movie industry today? I mean, I don't think any of them are Citizen Kane, It's,
If anything, I think it's definitely Disney's investment in its budgets. Disney has all the funds and the resources that's been going out and making those movies. They're doing it with not just Marvel, but Star Wars, Pixar, their movies. Even though I love the Pixar movies, everything that they face, except maybe one or two. Was never a big fan of A Bug's Life or...
That was early.
Yeah.
Very early.
I didn't like A Bug's Life. I thought Ants was better from
Ants was not...
from DreamWorks.
Ants was
Yeah.
DreamWorks.
Yes. I don't know all those bug movies came out at the same time.
as far as animation, I love the Kubo and the Two Strings.
Yes.
That was beautiful.
That was really
beautiful
good.
movie.
That's
yeah.
that's Japanese.
I believe so.
Is it Japanese?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Beautiful film.
Nice.
Because it was the way that they did the art style was. It was like it was supposed to be kind of like in the setting of like old school, old style like Japanese calligraphy.
Did you guys see The Breadwinner? Beautiful animated film. This little girl in the Middle East has to support the family, so she disguises herself as a boy, and it's based on a true story. And a beautiful film, yeah.
Sounds a little like Mulan.
So, what else do you recommend? Whether it's movies, TV?
Well, I'll tell you, it's not a huge blockbuster, so you might like it. It's called Sorry to Bother You, and it's like a sci-fi dramedy, and it's about a young man. He's kind of struggling, and he manages to get a job. I talked about this on my show a few weeks ago. About a young guy, he gets a job as a telemarketer.
Oh, I know about this. Yeah.
And he
Black filmmaker. Yeah.
Yeah, Boots Riley. He's
Is
a
it sci-fi?
It turns into a sci-fi.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't see it. Don't.
Right.
No
so
spoilers.
Right.
Yeah.
So, basically, he finds out that if he uses his
spoiled
white voice, a quote-unquote white voice, he'll get a better response from the customers.
Yeah.
And this leads him to climb the corporate ladder, and bizarre stuff starts to happen. So
Okay.
it's one of the,
Everybody's raving about it.
yeah, it's one of the best movies I've seen this year. So I recommend it. Sorry to bother you.
Sorry to bother you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? What should we be watching? Westworld on HBO. Awesome.
I haven't caught up to that yet.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I have to catch up. I haven't started that
Yeah.
show yet.
Really? Tremendous.
I've heard great things.
You haven't watched it either.
No.
The
But
beginning is a little slow. That's why I'm taking my time with it because the beginning just it's like gets more, the first episode like it locks you in, but then it just builds and doesn't build fast.
But
enough.
you care about the characters.
yeah.
Definitely, yeah. But then eventually it's like you start going, all right, this is getting too slow. Like something's got to happen. Something's more.
You lost interest?
I started to. I actually pulled what I do.
But I'll tell you the opposite. I'll watch a superhero movie the first 10 or 15 minutes, and everything's exploding, breaking, punching, kicking, flying, and I'm going, I'm bored by this. I turn it off. It's like overkill. It's like sensory overload to me.
It's all the same.
They definitely blow up a lot of
That's
blow
right.
up a lot of stuff in that, and I think the first episode of Westworld, but it then calms down so much that I'm like, all right, this is too somber. This is way too like low. Like it's got to build up somewhere. It's like it's gonna build up now.
But watch the entire season, because once you get to those final episodes of that first season, I mean, it's like absolute carnage. I mean, it picks up.
Yeah, they said also there's apparently they're picking up two different series that the guy made, where it was basically they had not to give anything away, but like there's other things that are in that realm of what they've been doing, but now people are starting to realize outside of their box. I heard a couple spoilers with that, so I'm like, oh, they're gonna go there? That's actually interesting.
I've found that there's so much great content on TV now. It's almost a golden age. I mean, between HBO, Showtime, Amazon, Netflix, Hulu. I mean, you could watch TV 24/7, like our friend Erica Asserson.
Right.
You could watch TV 24/7
and never make a dent.
And you could, yeah, I mean, if you live to 115, you'd still be missing something.
Something will be like, I didn't see that episode. What the hell?
Yeah.
But
Things are coming in. It's the binge watching
yeah.
era. Yeah. So there's everyone Netflix. They put out all like the shows all at once.
And I'll take it a step further. I think part of the reason is people are tired of horrific mass transit, or fighting to park your car, or putting a car in a lot for $50.
I'm going to Blockbuster.
Yeah, so they'll say, I'm going to stay home, relax, and watch something that's great on a big screen TV with surround sound, home theater, whatever the case may be.
And a bathroom that would actually be clean.
I remember watching Breaking Bad, binge watching that. Yeah. That took about maybe 2.5 days, 2.5 weeks out of my life.
But it was worth it.
It was amazingly
great.
Great. Great show.
Speaking of Breaking Bad, August 6th, whatever the first Monday of August, Better Call Saul, the spin-off series of Breaking Season 4.
Oh, 4 now. Cool. Yeah.
Nice. We're missing a season.
I know. I didn't catch up with the Odenkirk show. I don't know. I wasn't really into it as much. But interesting character. Yeah. But for TV, I'm more of a movie buff, you know that.
Okay. What else you guys recommend?
Luke Cage.
Really? I heard mixed reviews on it.
It's more. I always see it as more like on the music side, because it was like, it draws you in with the music of it. Like a lot of the songs, a lot of like the mood, the mood is set by the music and the tones of the music, because he uses like old like nice like 20s music, and it just brings you in, and you're like. Gives you like that kind of like settling feeling before like something blows up and he punches somebody through a wall.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, well, that happened.
I watched the first few episodes of The Punisher. I thought it was good.
Oh, that was
great
series.
Great series.
I don't know if I'd say great, but it's good. It's worth saying.
I think Daredevil is great. That's a great show. Yeah.
There'll be a third season of that coming soon.
Yep.
Nice.
So here's the big question. I mean, you could endlessly watch art, whether it's movies, TV, whatever the case may be, or you create art. So doesn't it reach a point sometimes where people are just too fixated, couch potatoes? I mean, don't you want to create your own art? Like you do a weekly show.
I'm going to be doing it in about 20 minutes.
That's right.
Yeah, that's
so
my contribution to the art world.
Everybody follow my...
Yeah,
I don't want to spend my life in front of a box.
Yeah.
You're right.
Even if it's a beautiful 80-inch box.
That's HD and 4K.
Exactly. I mean,
Dolby digital sound.
You're either a doer or you're a watcher, right? So.
Well, but it doesn't have to be like that.
It's good to have a balance. I mean, that's I think what everything is.
I think it's now also technology has come a long way. It's getting affordable, so everyone is able to go out and do artists. You see more student films, fan films. There was one Harry Potter fan film, or a Power Rangers fan film.
Little Batman. You ever see that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the kid in the parade. Yeah, that was great.
That was good.
So inspirational.
Even people are recreating the Ghostbuster scenes.
Yeah, well.
So you guys are Ghostbusters. Tell us a little about that.
Yep. Oh, I have too many stories about.
Dan's the veteran.
Oh, I'm an idiot. That's what it is.
Every listener just went, "Why is he saying that? What are you saying?"
I've been with the New York City Ghostbusters, which is our organization, for the better part of probably 5, maybe 6 years.
6 now? Wow.
It's been since 2012, so yeah.
I started in 2015.
And what does that entail for people that don't know?
Basically, we go to different conventions, libraries, schools, and we teach kids science, about the
Really?
properties of science with polymer.
That's interesting.
So,
How to create slime with borax, water, and Elmer's glue, and food coloring. So
Interesting.
And this is this is a challenge coin, which every member gets. We all have one. You don't have one? Okay, it's fine.
Ha!
Yeah. It's like a calling card. It's like a tangible representation of what we are as a group.
And what does this mean to you personally? Why is this something that you believe in?
Because it puts a smile on it. Like you just see the smiles on every kid, and you're just like, oh my god, you just made their day. Like yesterday, I had to drive to Jersey and then drive back to my house, then back to Jersey, which is why I'm kind of like loopy. I picked up the Ecto and I brought it back to my house so we can put a siren in. And the guys at Moving On Sound, they put the whole system in. We have it where it's like you hit the button and it does the whole Ecto siren, and it's hysterical because I was driving around a little bit of my town blaring the siren. I was like, let's see if I could not get in trouble. Went down a couple of streets, blaring the siren, going, I'm not going to get caught for this. All of a sudden, I'm like, ooh, God.
Yeah.
Button off.
A lot of people don't understand. Like they see the proton pack, they think it's like a weapon or a bomb of some sort.
Yeah.
Jetpack.
Yeah. They're like, do you fly? You know.
Yeah. But
I
could tell you many stories of idiot questions.
Yeah.
When you have that on.
People that don't even know what Ghostbusters is, you know. So.
Even people that know what Ghostbusters are, and they're like, "Are you a Ghostbuster?" No, I'm the janitor.
Yeah.
Really?
Right.
So what do you think of the most recent Ghostbuster movie, which got mixed reviews?
Yeah, I wasn't a fan. I mean, at first, like, okay, I respect that they're bringing the franchise back and they're introducing it to a new generation of fans. But I rewatched it like 2 nights ago, and it's just a bad movie. It's just
all right. So my next question would be, Jim Savali, if it's a bad movie, why'd you watch it again?
I was curious to see how it held up after 2 years.
Okay.
And nothing else.
And it was still bad.
Yeah, it was still bad. Yeah, if not worse.
I think I can put it this way: there's a lot of people that were fans of the first Ghostbusters back in 1984. We've seen the reviews back then, like people were even hating on it, that this is going to be bad, tarnishing the legacy for what the characters were in the movie from Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, Ernie Hudson.
And the only redeeming quality for
cast.
Bill Murray. They brought them all back for small cameos.
Oh, okay.
So that was a good
thing.
And what about Ghostbusters 2? What was your take on that?
I liked it.
That was
some people think that wasn't a great, and it was underrated, but it really was a good film.
It's actually
good film, not a great film. Good film.
It's actually one of my favorites of all time because of sentimental reasons. I was 4 years old when I saw it in theaters.
Oh, okay.
First movie I ever remember seeing.
Really?
So because of that, yeah, it holds a special place in my heart.
I still feel that Vigo gets more of the popularity of the villain than Gozer.
Yeah.
You mean this guy? Vigo the Carpathian? Yeah. The villain in Gozer.
I have a very traumatic early movie watching experience.
Uh-oh.
My dad, listen to this, Jim. My dad took me to see Bonnie and Clyde when I was a little kid. So at the end of Bonnie and Clyde, they shoot them up with like 400 bullets and their body's jerking. And I'm a little kid. I'm having like nightmares for 3 weeks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's a classic though.
My dad's like, this was a great movie. I can't sleep for a month.
That was what the 80s and the early days before the 90s hit.
Yeah.
Traumatizing.
Let's traumatize the kiddies.
Right. This is how we get the movie and get our point straight. Traumatization.
That's right.
Oh, you want to see a movie that you don't want to go into like a scary janitor closet anymore? Show them Freddy Krueger.
That's right. That's right.
Want to go in the water anymore? Show him Jason.
Oh, I didn't even. I'm gonna say Jaws. That too.
That Jaws too, but
The first Jaws, people were scared to go in the ocean after that.
Of course. Yeah.
oh,
That was the dawn of the
Yeah.
summer blockbuster.
That was
Oh,
like
yeah.
the first.
But that happened to be a great movie. The
Oh, yeah.
sequels were nothing.
Oh, Lord,
That
the
first
sequels
Jaws
are
was
horrible.
great.
Weren't a fan of Jaws 4 with Michael Caine.
No.
I think the
Michael
worst-
Caine actually said that he did movies for money. He said these movies paid for my house. These movies, guys like Michael Caine and Anthony Hopkins took the check and ran. And the king of that is Eddie Murphy, who prostituted his great talents doing absolute garbage over the years.
Same with De Niro.
De Niro's done one bad movie after another. I'm sorry, Robert. At least Pacino, he'll go back to doing great work.
Yeah, he's consistent.
But Dustin Hoffman once said, my films are my legacy, and I regret doing the bad movies. Because sometimes it's hard to turn down a multi-million-dollar paycheck.
Right.
But,
what was it? There was one thing I remember finding out about the Bachelor. No, it wasn't Bachelor. It was the one where they're sitting on the end of the bus, and I think you might have told me that.
The Graduate?
Graduate.
The end of The Graduate.
The edge of the Graduate. They just didn't. They were like, we don't know when to cut, so they were just like
They
they
just
just
sat
sat
there.
there with the camera on them, just going.
That's a great scene, though.
The Graduate's a classic,
Oh my
though.
God.
Absolutely.
But I'm talking later down the road.
Yeah.
Some guys shouldn't have
Little
a gun in their
Fockers,
hand, be
Meet the
doing
Fockers.
action movies or silly comedies.
Yeah.
You're just too good.
You're right.
I mean, De Niro's worth $300 million. Turn down a paycheck once in a while. No, really.
Right.
Actually, I think he's doing a new one with about I think it was like with Bruce Willis. I think it was like Motherless Brooklyn or something like that.
Oh, First We Take Brooklyn? No,
No.
that's Harvey Keitel.
Yeah, I think it's Motherless Brooklyn.
Okay.
I don't know. They actually were shooting it recently over at Bethpage, and now they're shooting The Kitchen with Melissa McCarthy, and I think the guy who plays, I'm gonna say one of the characters on Game of Thrones, and I can't even think of what his name could be.
But one of the more disappointing movies, Righteous Kill, came out like 10 years ago.
I never saw it.
It had De Niro and Pacino reuniting like 20 years since Heat, and everyone was so excited for it, but it was just a total letdown.
Wow.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Still need the script.
Yeah.
So, guys, plug whatever you want to plug, your social media, your show, please.
Under the Radar, it's going to be on at 1 o'clock today, every Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern. And we'll
Tell folks what it is.
Yeah, so basically it's a film review show where I review upcoming movies and I interview notable talent, mostly actors and directors.
There you go.
Well, I guess I'll plug the New York City Ghostbusters. Find us on Facebook. I have a cosplay page. It's Shaggy GB. Just go to my Facebook. You find the cosplay page. I rarely post on it, so eventually I'm going to get better at that because I'm starting to build up my repertoire again. I had a little bit of slump, so I'm kind of like pulling my head out of my butt. I also do the D2 Comic Culture. We randomly do a stream once in a while. We're still trying to figure out our own crap. And I guess that's it.
There you go, Matt.
I'm just going to promote to follow the New York City Ghostbusters.
There you go.
Cool.
Okay. That about do it, folks. And check out Under the Radar, 1 p.m. What do you have on today?
I'm going to have these two gentlemen on, actually, and we're going to review some more movies, one of which is the new Dwayne the Rock Johnson action
Don't tell me it's an action movie.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, it's a romantic comedy.
Another guy should turn down some checks.
But that's Skyscraper, and we're going to review another indie film called Pincushion. Also, I'll be broadcasting an interview I did a while back with an indie actress and indie director. So
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Under the Radar, 1 p.m. every Sunday at villageconnectionradio.com. And I'm curious to see what our new abode will look like when we move soon. So that'll be interesting. So, and when we come back, we're going to go from Ghostbusters to a poetry set. This is the eclectic mix known as the Evan Ginzburg Show. Poet John Winnell will be joining us in just a bit. Don't go anywhere.
Babe, I'm a man. what you've gone and done with your life. Somehow you learn to love your Monday. You know that I can't change. It's always been that way. It's always me just moving sideways. Now I realize that what's been advertised, it's all just been a bunch of lies, a bunch of lies. And now I'm on my way, on the LI Expressway, to try and stop this whole new ride. My mind begins to
back with the Evan Ginzburg Show at Village Connection Radio. Not quite as profound as Ghostbusters 2. We have the poetry of John Winnell.
I apologize.
That's
for that.
right.
And not ironically, my first poem is called Surprised By. So I'm not surprised by, I was surprised by. Surprised by. Oh, to be surprised by light, its buttery skein enlivening leaves and windows, making greens and reds vibrant, pulsating notions. Days float as a wind's embrace, tossing stories and papers, giving birds an advantage depending on their trajectory. I walk these fermented streets, a temperate soldier waiting, watching for that blare of a whistle, to chuckle rhapsodically as the wind tosses all things towards the open sea. Just a breath away. Newsreel flash, conflict land scarred, destroyed in battle. Families forever broken by shards of time, never to return. Shattered mica rocks, no longer the mirror reflects. Stadiums that held innocent play, eruptions recorded when the home team scored, lay silent, empty as zoos where lions once roared in the sun. We sit in the comfort of air-conditioned homes, in need of laughter and love, awakened by flickering images, listening to the quiet breathing of our sleeping children. It's called The Shock of Time. Leaving the comforts of familiarity, passing through teeth-bared terrain, frigid loneliness, a train ride inside boredom's belly, quiet reflection, a hustler's rhapsody, bodies retch, a girl with a leotard stretches, a pirate glares lustfully. Streets sweat from heat. Is there no reprieve? Solitude crouches in shadows. Couples and families fight, offer no quarter, as oppressive as the weather. Is the only route to awakening the shock of time as a knife across the throat of an innocent child? Called Degas and Illusion. The white walls of the practice room, dancers stretch, raise legs and arms as musicians keep time. Pulled muscles, achy limbs, stiffened fingers, the scent of sweat and onions pervade as the pianist smokes a cigarette and talks to one of the girls. Anonymity outlasts fame. A young French girl gazes. I offer a cool glance and ask about bluebirds hovering over the Seine. Julie laughs and exposes a black birthmark hidden on her white swan neck. We speak about dead matadors and lovers hidden in unseen apartments. In another room, a clock chimes 4 times as the sun grazes the edges of a Chinese vase. I can smell her hair, holding her closely and tenderly, swimming inside a kiss. This is one from the book. It's called Coleridge is Dying. She held her innocence in the light, upturned in her palm, I lingered like a bird teetering on the edge of a tree limb. Her crystalline eyes caught a sparkle of curiosity, lost in afternoon. She said the children ruffled her clothes, seeking comfort. I watched each curl, her hair pulled back, lifted above an exposed neck, the sky turning gray, the scent of rain everywhere, dogs and horses panting in the cool autumn breezes. The tower still held our secrets. We gazed out at stars that summer so long ago, when flocks of birds screeched as they darted past. Was this our Xanadu, where Kubla Khan took his last breath in the lilac letters of dawn, or just a tainted arsenal that kept us warm from the chilly water that soaked everything? Look of breathless desire. An apparition on the subway, all the way to the city. She leans forward with anticipation of gasps and stares. I coyly open the soft, smooth pages of a book of stories. Lust and disappointment, she gazes into my eyes. I'm paralyzed, frozen with desire. Yet I am aware of her discomfort, as others can't look away. I feel her alabaster skin with my fingers, aroused with anxiety, touching letters and words, and Eddie's twirl of passion awakens in my chest loins, my reflection in clouded glass, stations, numbers descending as if slowly approaching an infinity of hell. Our eyes meet one last time, black and blue haze, her frailty, my loneliness, each unresolved, at least for a moment. It's called Lost Sense. If they hadn't hated each other, things might have turned out different. The scalloped handle of the scythe raised over heads of weather-torn travelers, naked disillusioned sorrows. Time has not revealed any answers. Save me drones through hills and valleys, murmurs to passers-by, the great leveler, poor and wealthy, old and young, joy and sorrow, all fodder. From dust we come, and dust we shall return. The screaming Pope innocent on his gilded throne revels in the European slaughterhouse. And unforgiven and unforgiving ladled from a toxic soup. The hissing madman fulminates tart misunderstandings in broken mirrors. An angel weeps on the precipice of dawn. Not too many more, just a couple more. It's called The Encroaching Past. Time's river is long and convoluted. It trips over rocks, stumbles with fury after storms, whimpers in times of drought. Days take unforeseen turns when darkness overhangs with perilous augury, only to bubble and rise as the tides pulled by silvery moonlight. Memories float, helium-filled, rising above cities' grime as clocks that forever chime at designated hours regardless of the placement of the sun. To expect changes in an otherwise etched landscape is as foolish as wondering if a wolf won't tear the throat of its naked prey. And I'll end with this. This is for the painter Agnes Martin. For Agnes. When did you swallow the sun? Or was it the daughter moon, whose silver tendrils made you mad as Medusa? Silent turbulence, the sea gurgling in a passing hurricane's eye. Lonely New York, its ancient harbor flooded with angels and gulls, rotting piers that melt into the river. Patterns simmer and stretch across miles of shoreline, the quiet miracles of loneliness, mixing colors that reach infinity only to get lost in the void, the ever-present darkness, resigned to unfinished perfections.
Beautiful. John Winnell. John Winnell. And that'll pretty much do it. Coming up in 1 minute, the Under the Radar show with Randy Unger as we bid farewell to our beloved studio. Bye-bye. Very, very enthusiastic bye-bye from Jim Savali, our engineer. He's ready to go. He had enough. So, John, well, you're a poet. What do you think of the studio for the last time?
Good memories, but there's no soap in the bathroom.
Yeah, see?
Yeah. No soap radio. Remember that joke?
That's right. Soap
Anyway, that'll about do it. And when we come back next Sunday, we'll be in a totally new studio, and hopefully everything will work, which is always a plus. All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed the eclectic mix known as the Evan Ginzburg Show. Jim Savali, thank you for this forum. And we went 2 hours pretty much without talking about wrestling, which was good. It's been overkill the past few weeks. So see you next week, folks.
She keeps a loaded suitcase under her bed. She knows someday she'll need to run from here. She's got nowhere to go, but everything to wear. When life has left her empty, she's learned to fill her head and leave the pain behind for someone else. She never had it easy, never seemed to care. Goodbye, 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 Angeline. Wave goodbye, 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 Angeline. Never had a reason, she'll never be ashamed. Never had the answers and learn the games. And everything she had was everything she gave. Wave goodbye, 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 Angeline. Wave goodbye, 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 Angeline.
try to let you go, I'm scared. Can't give you any kind of comfort that'd be fair. The longing rages in my heart. It tears me all apart. When you turn me on, you devastate my plans. When it comes to you and me, it's back to you I'll always be. When it comes to you and me, I can see the forest for the trees. I've lost all my focus since you opened up my eyes. I can trace your outline by the scars you left behind. I feel like I've been shot, bleeding out, straining to speak. My pulse is slowing down. I'm so weak. When it comes to you and me, it's back to you I'll always be. When it comes to you and me, I see the forest for the trees. When it comes to you and me, it's back to you.